Hi everybody, Jim Ostrowski. I'm back playing around with my new favorite toy. I did a podcast before, which I deleted, which I'll explain why. Well, actually, I won't explain why. But no, I'm just playing around with this new selfie stick. I'm trying to figure out if I can do like some podcasting while I walk. I probably can't. I'll look for some audience feedback, but I'm having fun with it. I kind of finally figured out how this thing works. It's sort of, I don't know, it's high tech. It balances, I don't know what it does. I'm not a science guy. It makes sure the camera doesn't shake too much, and you get a little bit of a panoramic view. So these are kind of throwaway podcasts. I'm deleting most of them because I sound like a rambling lunatic. But, it's funny because I'm on the North Buffalo bike path and I can see half a mile behind me, 250 yards ahead of me. I'm a track guy, so we know distances. There's nobody out. It's like high 50s in Buffalo. Where's everybody? Everybody's inside, like watching some stupid TV show or whatever. I don't know what people are doing. They're not exercising. I'm going to ramble around a bit. So for people in Buffalo, I'm challenging Nate McMurray on Twitter, who's a prominent Democrat, unsuccessful candidate for a couple of offices. That doesn't mean anything really, because if you're unsuccessful, it probably means you lied a lot less than the guy who won, because people want to be fooled by bullshit. But Nate's talking about Medicare for all, and I said, Nate, I hope the Easter Bunny brings you a big chocolate bunny next year, just trying to emphasize the fact that progressivism is just this sort of fantasy of free shit. But no, in all seriousness though, I said, look, show me some hard data. Medicare and Medicaid, they're part of the so-called Great Society that really fucked the country. You have no idea how great this country was before the Great Society came along. I understand black people were treated poorly. Fucking wake up, okay? Grow the fuck up. Nobody's denying that. But Jesus Christ, for a lot of white people and black people, life was improving at that time within the limitations that human society has. So Medicare and Medicaid come along in around 1967, 1968. In 1965, you could go to the hospital, have a baby for like $300, something like that. Now it's like, well, first of all, my God, I'm going to go off on a tangent. You go to the hospital now, you're 35%, I'm guessing. Don't hold me to the stats, but I'm a stat guy. The odds are you're going to have a cesarean section, or at least a 1/3. Not the odds are, but the odds are great that you will have a cesarean section. The reason why you have cesarean sections, by the way, is because American doctors are fucked up and don't know how to deliver a baby. And it's this notion that we have this great faith. Like, I have been a critic. This is all going to wrap together, I hope. But if it doesn't, who the fuck cares? Because I'm just playing around with my new toy. I said before in the podcast I then deleted for reasons I won't explain. Why do you think the government can run a justice system? And I swear to fucking God, has anybody asked this question other than Rothbard? A few people, the Tannehills, J.O. Why does anybody think the government, and in all honesty, I'm not sure who was asked this question is just this way. I won't go off on the tangent. Why does anybody think the government can produce justice? Can somebody answer me that fucking question? Please, tell me. My father was a judge for 30 years. I grew up knowing all these people. My father was a special breed of cat. I grew up with these people. I've been a lawyer for 39 years. I'm not a law professor cloistered in academia. I'm out in the real world. I go into the courts. I go into the jails. I go into the state prisons. I've been in federal prison. I'm not a fucking academic. In other words, I know what the hell I'm talking about. Why does anybody think that the government is capable of producing justice? Please, let me know. Send me a text, okay? Give me the argument from Aristotle, Plato, any of those Greek philosophers. I love Aristotle, by the way. Not taking anything away from Plato. not a Platonic admirer. Let's face it. Let's be honest. We're Aristotelians in our movement. So, by the same token, I trust my OBGYN to give me that episiotomy for no fucking reason. Because, after all, he's got a license from the state, right? My OBGYN has a license from the state. What the fuck does that mean? He's got a license from the state. What's the state? The state is some political entity set up by the people who grabbed control of a certain physical territory after some sort of a war was over. Well, what war led to the creation of New York State? French Indian War, the American Revolution. So some guys with muskets took over control over this territory called New York State, and then they created some sort of a government. And because these guys were really good with muskets and military strategy on a battlefield, and they created the state, and then under the state system, some people who aren't doctors voted for some legislature, and the legislature then passed some laws and said, we're going to put some jokers in charge of licensing doctors. So these non-doctors decide who can be a doctor, and you trust these fuckers to deliver your baby? And you wonder why 35% of American women are having C-sections? So, I have over the years and will continue to do so, raised a lot of questions about the American healthcare system. None of it makes any sense. America should be like the healthiest nation on earth. We have all sorts of economic resources. It's a large country. There's places to go for recreation, swimming and hiking and mountain climbing and stuff like that. And we're one of the least healthy countries on earth. So why is that? These are the questions I want to be asking in the future. So I've been a longtime critic of American medicine. None of it makes any sense. There's no logical reason to believe that doctors licensed by the state have some special ability to make us healthy. And we saw really during the lockdown that what really should have been done to fight COVID was declaring a national health emergency and get people out walking, out in the sun to get vitamin D, losing weight. There's a strict correlation between weight and weight-related problems such as high blood pressure, cardiac problems, diabetes, and so on, and those most likely to succumb to COVID. So I'm just sort of rambling about various health-related ideas, but the main point is, if you think the government is good for your health, if you think the government is good for justice, if you think the government is good for educating your children, you've been brainwashed. There's no reason to believe any of these things. If you think we need the government to create a road system. You know how many, I mean, Walter Block has pointed out all the people who die in traffic accidents every year. And we've had one fatality in our family, 2 other close calls. And by the way, I'm writing a book on how to drive safely in these perilous times, because this is an issue that's near and dear to me, and I think there's a lot of things that people could do to make driving safer. And you know, one of the ideas I have is you can just see it when you're driving around. People view driving as this competition. There's a thing called game theory, and it's a very advanced system of thought. But it's basically a study of how people interact and how people make decisions based on how they think other people are going to make decisions in the near future. And then the people react to how they think other people are going to make decisions. It's called game theory. It's super complicated. It's a little bit above my... Hey, Steven, how you doing, buddy? At least I got one person listening to my ramblings. I'm really just trying out the camera, so the content doesn't matter. But so as I drive around Buffalo, New York, it's obvious to me that a significant number of the drivers on the road are just carrying out their kind of personal angst, and they get into a car. It gives them a feeling of power that they lack in their personal lives, and they really want to just bully people. But, you know, one of the things I want to point out in my book is if you view driving as a competition, then that's going to be a major problem. Is people trying to get to point A faster than the other person, even though it makes no actual difference in their practical life. Like, you cut somebody off and you get to work like 15 seconds. You really want to get to work a job you hate, by the way, let's face it, 15 seconds faster. So if people just approach driving not as like a competition, because the reality is you're only competing with a few people in the world. There's 8 billion people in the world. You're only competing with a few people at any given time. In your business or whatever, if you're trying to date some lady, there might be one other person in the picture. Everybody else is fine. It's like, you know, get along with people. If you approach driving as sort of like, hey, we're all in this together, let's work together. I have a rule I'll put in the book, and this does relate to health, because this is one of the leading causes of death in the United States, traffic accidents. I have a very simple rule. I yield to everybody all the time. So, I have a very selfish motive in doing it. What's the selfish motive? First of all, it clears my brain of that whole decision-making process. Like, if you're one of these people who doesn't have a policy on letting people into traffic, do you realize how many times a day you have to decide, am I going to let this guy in, or am I going to let him in? And all that time is just like wasted mental energy over bullshit. If you let the guy in to traffic, it's costing you like 5 seconds. Do you realize the value of the brain space that you're wasting by thinking about it? I mean, you could have thought of like some great idea for a great business or something. Just trying to figure out how this camera works. So my policy is I always let people into traffic. So are there exceptions to the rule? Yeah. If it's dangerous to do so, I don't do it. If it's dangerous to do so, I don't do it. If the guy's been a prick driving, I won't do it, because I don't want to reward a prick for being a prick, because he's more likely to be a prick in the future. So this is the kind of thing you would think, you know, I know how to drive. What do we need a book on how to drive for? Well, I've been sort of obsessing about these things for 50 years. The first winter I ever drove was the blizzard of '77, and I distinctly recall there was a driving ban at that time, and I said to myself, I'm like 18. I got my license late. I'm 18. I'm like an American. We just won World War II. My father was a war hero. I can't drive? You're telling me I can't? Some fucking scumbag politician is telling me I can't drive? I just drove anyway. I didn't care. I didn't give a shit. So I guess I was a natural libertarian even then. So, yeah, just a preview of a future book that hopefully I'll get done. As far as health, I wrote about this in Progressivism, 2014. I thought it was pretty prescient. And in the book Progressivism, I talked about the obesity problem in America, which if people had listened to me, we would have dealt with COVID a lot more logically. A lot of people's lives would have been saved. I basically said, and I didn't do a deep dive into the biochemistry of food and diet and so on and exercise is actually pretty complicated. But I went for the big picture. I'm a philosophy guy. I said, look, this is why we have so much obesity in the United States. People eat food that's bad for them, and they're not smart enough to realize the food is bad for them. Why? Because I explain why in the book. Big government makes people dumb. The basic reason is, I'm following Hans Hoppe on some of this stuff. The more the government does this for you, the stupider you get. It's just basically logic. Because why should you think the government's doing all this stuff for you? See, basically, through lack of use and so on, your brain gets really stupid. So you eat that donut because it tastes good, and half an hour later, you're hungry because the donut doesn't have any nutritional value and spikes your insulin, but you're too stupid to realize why. So you have another donut. And next thing you know, you weigh 300 pounds, and COVID comes along, and you fucking die because you have diabetes. So, I mean, I like to, simple battle plans are the best. I don't want to get into all the biochemistry then or now. And so, but I had a sort of a primitive theory of health. So I think I've rambled on enough. I don't think I'm going to delete this video because I actually made a few good points. Thanks everybody for watching. Hoping to do as I learn how to operate this camera more efficiently. I know I look like hell because I haven't slept well in like 3 weeks due to legal work, and I'm old, let's face it. But I think I look okay. I think it's kind of interesting. But give me some feedback on the technical aspects. I'm just using an iPhone. There's no mic. I think the audio is good. The iPhone's fantastic. No complaints. So, and the one of the things I can do compared to what I was doing, over the past year when I'm hiking is I can answer questions. So I'd love to have a situation where people are just shooting questions at me, and I could go all day, ask me about the minimum wage, or ask me about secession, ask me about Lincoln or Wilson or Herbert Hoover, and I'll just go on. And so it's easy for me to just sort of get into a Q&A, and hopefully we can have some fun while I take my hikes. Basically, I think I'll just give a little primer on what I've done to lose a bunch of weight. So I got a light here with some traffic and noise. Let me just get through this intersection. As I said before, if you're in a car, you see a biker, a walker, or a runner, or whatever, somebody on a board, whatever they call that thing. Be courteous. They're saving you money in medical bills. There's you guy in the car. Those people out there moving their bodies are saving you money. So please be fucking courteous. So basic diet regimen, which I've upped my game because I have prostate cancer. Hike in the morning. I hit the gym. I do a sauna. Saunas are amazing. I'm not going to get into the details. I'm not the guy to talk about saunas details. I have breakfast with, I don't eat any wheat products. I don't eat any sugar. I really banned potatoes. I cheat sometimes, but cheating is okay. I'll get into that. Explain why. I'm on the 10-6 fast, which is I don't eat between 10 and 6. In theory, I'm skipping lunch. I usually do, but if I'm doing legal work, I can't. I have to have a little bit of a snack. So in the book I'm going to come out with on all this, I'll have some suggestions on how to have a snack that's not, you don't need lunch. Let's face it. I mean, the nation's 40% obese. You don't need lunch. If you have a decent breakfast that's nutritious, and I do, you're really good till about 2, 3, 4. Maybe you have a snack, maybe you don't. And then you can have a decent dinner. So no sugar, no wheat products, no beer, no potatoes. You can have a little red wine with dinner. I think red wine is health food. And some of the people, don't like red wine, whatever. It's like, give me a break. I've given up everything except red wine and corn chips. So I'm not going to give those up. So that's basically it this stuff is not complicated. And here's the thing. So once you get off the carbs, the addiction to carbs, again, as I alluded to before, I was a pasta, bread, beer guy. And God damn it, I'm 35 pounds lighter than I was. And I never looked really obese because I'm a big guy. I have a big frame, whatever you want to call it. But geez, once you give that up, you have so much more energy. You sleep better. You don't have this thing where okay, you'll have the donut or you have the Danish in the afternoon and you're good for an hour because you sugar rush. And then I don't understand the biochemistry. I don't really give a flying fuck. I just know that after an hour, you need to have another Danish. So when you have high, dense, nutritious food like eggs or vegetables or nuts, you don't have that energy spike. You have this constant release of energy. And I'll do a lot more of these podcasts while I'm walking unless people tell me not to do it.